Welcome to our evening tonight. Thank you for giving up your Friday. So we're looking at supporting transitions for all children, including those with SEND. If you can possibly keep yourselves on mute, and as Nicola said, um, videos off if you want to, or on if you want to, not a problem, but it is going on to YouTube. So a little bit about me. Nicola said, I am the childminder partner. I am a working childminder. I'm also a parent to a child with SEN. And the other thing that's quite exciting is I was made Childminder Senko of the Year a few weeks ago. So, oh, I'm trying to change screen. Okay, here we go. So here's a nice picture of, I love being outside myself. So summer term is the term where we are finishing the academic year and might be looking at transitions for many of our children, whatever setting we work in as September approaches. I've deliberately chosen this picture of a path as an illustration of transitions. We can see in the distance the path where we are aiming for, but from where we are standing currently, we can't see the entire route clearly before us, and neither can we see what lies beyond the path in the distance. We can only hope the path continues to be this smooth and easy to navigate for the sections we can't see. However, frequently it isn't. What do we mean by transitions? Transitions can be enormous like an elephant, changing settings, moving house, new baby sibling, a parent moving out. Transitions can also be tiny, like a ladybird or ant. I've had to enlarge the picture just so we could see it, such as stopping an activity you were really enjoying to have lunch. Transitions can also be anywhere in between. Another child in the setting being away on holiday, or a favourite member of staff being out of the setting, even if it's just for their lunch break. I'm sure most of us have experienced children being upset when arriving in the mornings or leaving to go home. Sometimes it can be the same child on the same day who doesn't want to come in and then also doesn't want to go home again. Some children, like adults, find transitions harder than others, and what, as a practitioner, we might view as a small or insignificant transition, the child might view as enormous. So we need to be mindful of how we manage transitions for all the children in our settings. So visually, I find all these pictures of clocks overwhelming, and I start to get anxious about being on time and not being late and how much time we have left of the presentation. I also have a husband who likes to be anywhere at least 10 minutes before the arranged time, and if it involves an aeroplane, far longer. Your response to this picture might be similar to mine or completely different. The same as we wouldn't expect children to have the same emotion or response to the same picture or situation. In early year settings, some might have time-based fixed structures and routines, including constraints on sharing spaces with other groups and lunchtimes. Other settings might be more free flow and flexible, with a few fixed points in the day, such as a childminder providing wraparound care with a school or nursery. So how do children know what is going to happen in your setting? Visual timetables, or now or next. The use of visual timetables started for children with identified SEN, which then has transferred into mainstream to support all children. There is no right or wrong way on using a visual timetable, as long as it matches the children's experience in the day. The one on the right is an example of my daily structure as a childminder, with a different morning activity, such as a library visit, which would be displayed next to the day of the week. Some children might rigidly refer to the visual timetable you display. Others might prefer to talk about it. It could just be a little reminder as the child reminds you as the practitioner of who is collecting them that day, or vice versa. For some of the children in my care, if the person collecting them changes without them being warned, it creates a huge amount of distress, even when it is a parent who lives with them. Other children might like to verbalise a sequence, and in my setting, when children have different arrival and collection times, the children all know the order of who is arriving or going home, even though they can't tell the time on a clock yet. In your setting, do you have lots of transitions, including tidy up time? Are there any you could lessen for those who might need less? So one of the things is for children, if they're engrossed in play, but you have to tidy up the structure you've just made because it's tidy up time before you go outside. And when you come back, you could play with it. You might not put as much effort into building that big structure again. So the Education Endowment Foundation tells us when adults create consistent, predictable routines, they develop an emotionally safe environment. This helps children feel secure, know what to expect, and makes the development of regulation skills more manageable. And you can find more about this, and you'll get the slides and the links should hopefully work. So just quickly, if you think of breaking tasks into smaller steps, so using an adult example of making a cup of tea, for some children, especially those with SEND, they may need tasks broken down into smaller steps for them to complete before moving on to the next step. So if you break it down, making a cup of tea into smaller manageable steps, you have to think what you would do first, what would come next, and what's last, and everything in between. And so in the case of a cup of tea, maybe did you put in buying tea bags from the shop? And did anybody make sure the kettle had water in it before you boiled it? So here's an example from Eric, the Children's Bowel and Bladder Charity. On the stages, including the visual images you could use on using the toilet, and the pictures are fairly self-explanatory. For some children, this might be far too many pictures. They might only cope with 2 or 3. And perhaps for other children, there's not enough pictures because the washing hands doesn't show using soap. But that's just an example of ways you could choose to maybe even reveal the pictures as you go along. So some are hidden and then you reveal them to say what the next step is. So transitions and change can be hard for everyone. But in children with SEND, these emotions can be intensified and displayed in a variety of ways, including their behaviour. These emotions and anxiety of change can also be experienced by the child's parents or carers, which the child can then pick up on and impact on the child's behaviour. And the fight-flight response is a well-known way of displaying behaviour of either choosing to fly away from a situation or fight or have a tantrum about the situation when you're not coping. So this is a staff or practitioner wellbeing stress map by the Anna Freud Centre. And I found it really useful to help identify how stress can manifest itself both personally, even if I don't realise, and in helping spot it in others. And some of these traits could also be found in the children we work with, especially things like the physical sensations, the forgetfulness, the tense muscles, the breathing faster, the bowel and bladder problems, the headaches, and obviously the feeling of just being bad-tempered and angry. And, you know, sometimes even in the behaviour, the sleep disturbances in children, we all know if a child is tired, how that impacts on their behaviour. So transition planning for changing settings. It needs planning and preparation. And planning for an effective transition for a child, especially those with SEND, needs careful planning and preparation. It's like getting ready for a holiday. You need to know the destination and any activities planned so you can prepare and pack what's needed. There'll be similarities and differences. But if I say the Caribbean, you might think of warmth and beaches. And Antarctica might be the opposite. There'd be some similarities and differences, but you need to pack a different wardrobe. Cool. So this is just a rhetorical question, just to have the self-reflection for a bit. So in your setting, do you currently have transition plans for children leaving or starting and settling in? And is it the same for all children? Or do you have an element of flexibility and adjustment if it's not working and it needs a bit of tweaking. So this slide shows the 4 behaviours Mary Ainsworth identified during stress or exploration. So young children who have formed a secure attachment to their caregiver may display the following patterns of behaviour during times of stress or exploration. The proximity maintenance of wanting to be near their primary caregiver, basically the clingy child that is like Velcro, that is constantly wanting to hold your hand or be very close to you. The safe haven of returning to their primary caregiver for comfort and safety if they feel afraid or threatened. The secure base, treating their primary caregiver as a base of security from which they can explore the surrounding environment. The child feels safe in the knowledge that they can return to their secure base when needed. And separation distress, experience anxiety in the absence of their primary caregiver. For most children, this could be their parents. They are upset when their caregiver leaves, but happy to see them and easily comforted when they return. So the Education Endowment Foundation for Self-Regulation and Executive Function tells us co-regulation occurs when a child receives warm, responsive support from an adult to bridge the gap between the child's current and their potential capacity to regulate in a particular task or situation. Soothing, calming, and supportive interactions with trusted adults play a crucial role in enabling children to regulate and develop their self-regulation skills. Adults help to develop children's awareness and understanding of their thoughts, emotions, and actions to underpin their ability to regulate them. An adult's own level of self-regulation, emotional availability, and capacity for regulation in the moment can play a part in the success of co-regulation and coaching self-regulation. And they continue to say, the level of support required by the adult during co-regulation depends on the child's developmental stage and level of self-regulatory skills, their experience with the task or situation, and their emotional and cognitive state in that moment. An adult's role in co-regulation is larger when enabling children who typically have limited or lower self-regulation skills, such as babies and toddlers, to manage a situational task. For example, the adult observes a toddler hitting out towards another child who has tried to take the toy they are playing with. The adult responds to both children by engaging them at their level, empathizing and articulating what has just happened. The adult sensitively offers the child reassurance and a hug. The adult then uses the moment to expand the children's knowledge of self-regulation strategies, for example, by suggesting they take a deep breath to calm down, then modeling how to gesture stop to another child or asking and waiting for a turn. Finally, the adult finds another toy so both children have enough resources to play with. Adult support can reduce in intensity as children's experience of self-regulation in different contexts increases. For example, the adult provides reassurance when a child is frustrated that another child is riding the bike they wanted first. They empathize with the child's feelings and remind them of a strategy they can apply to help them regulate. After taking a few deep breaths, the child asks for a stand timer to make sure they have a fair turn. And even children who appear to frequently use self-regulation strategies may require more intensive co-regulation with an educator in some instances. For example, if they're tired or upset. Similarly, the educator's level of self-regulation may also fluctuate throughout the day and over time influencing their capacity for co-regulation with a child. An educator's knowledge of the child's existing skills, the current context, and their well-being are valuable to effectively tailor the intensity of the support offer. So, an ideal transition plan in action. Don't leave planning to the last minute. Find out from parents information about the new setting, including name, location, uniform, teacher, adult's name. Arrange a transition visit for the child to the new setting. Invite the SENCO from the new setting for a meeting and observation with the child in the current setting. And for people who might not be familiar with the graduated approach, which is used in STEM, I actually quite like this diagram of the assess, plan, do, review cycle. You might have also called it the assess, plan, do, review cycle. So there's that picture. And then we've got all about me, the voice of the child. So when you're planning the transition, the child's key worker with assistance from the SENCO gathers information about the child to update their information passport or other document form that you use, including all about me information, including the likes and the dislikes for the child, and maybe their triggers, communication methods, support needs and how these are currently met, equipment used, tracking against milestones and their current next steps, other professionals involved with the children and family, and any professional diagnosis or referrals in place. So the SENCO's role in all of this is there to help smooth the fears and worries by creating a clear and personalised plan for the child's transition between the settings. The SENCO enables communication and information sharing between the parents or carers, the school or new setting, and the child's key worker. The SENCO will have a transition meeting with the parent or carer and new setting the child is moving to. The SENCO passes on the SEND information to the new setting so they are fully aware of all the child's needs and how they're currently being met. Information about the child, e.g. the current achievements and targets and the key information passport will also go too. So this picture with the blue sky thinking and the rainbow is in an ideal world where everybody has plenty of time and plenty of resources. So not all of these will be possible, but in an ideal world, a member of staff from the new setting would observe and spend time interacting with the child and key worker in their current setting. The child with either their parent or key worker or both would visit the new school. To further ease transition, a transition book and picture story could be created, including the child's favourite things, or to record their visit to their new setting, such as my new school is called, my teacher is, in my classroom, I will wear, and the name of the person that will drop me off to school and pick me up like they did from nursery. The key worker can also prepare for the transition in the current setting by reading stories of children starting school, having school uniform as part of the dressing up offer, and preparing the child for any expectations in school, which are not part of the early year setting, can also be helpful, such as toileting independently or as independently as possible, practicing carrying objects on a tray in preparation for school dinners, and potentially lining up. So a reminder about safe information sharing. All information about children and their families is confidential. During transition, only relevant information will be shared. Information will be shared by the SENCO or manager between settings by official channels. It's not down to the individual key worker unless you're a childminder to do it yourself. And there's more information from the Department for Education. So positive, effective transition and information sharing, the reason why we do it is so support can be planned for and put in place before the child starts. And the child can continue to build on their progress with their learning and achievements with new practitioners who have prior understanding of their needs and how best to meet them. So they continue to thrive and meet their individual goals and next steps. And there's no, we lessen the gap. The child and also their parents have reduced stress and anxiety as the new is not known or unexpected. So have you helped prepare the child, including packing their suitcase for their new destination? The Education Endowment Foundation also says, within their teaching awareness of emotions and feelings, Many successful interventions use stories that are rich in emotional language as prompts for discussion. Practitioners may use questions to prompt pupils' reflections on their own experiences. During discussions, pupils may learn to label emotions using specific words, recognize facial expressions, and connect events to the feelings they may provoke. So here are a collection of stories about starting a new setting. We can't always remove change, but we can be mindful of how we manage the transitions. So some of these are about starting at a nursery or playgroup, such as Goat Goes to Playgroup. Lulu's first day is at a nursery and others are going to school. So I've managed to whiz through this remarkably quickly. I don't know how we've managed to do it so fast. So we've got to reflect on one thing you would like to take away from the session. If you want to jot it down or have a think, and we can move into questions